Plants that grow in Chihuahua that are found at or around Burgess High School by Isabella Sims and Sarai Leva. Our first plant is called Cape honeysuckle. This plant originated in southern Africa and it's an evergreen shrub with bright orange/red trumpet-shaped flowers. This plant is known for being hummingbird heaven, with tons of hummingbirds being attracted to it to take from its nectar in the little flowers that are grown on the shrub. This plant is perfect for hot, sunny weather, and it doesn't need lots of water. It can be grown in sandy areas or rocky areas, and it can grow on a vine, climbing fences or walls, or just be kept as a bushy shrub. The photo on the bottom right is the plant that will be looking like it in Minecraft. Our next plant is called the Chihuahuan sage. This plant is native to the Chihuahuan desert region, and it is very used to hot and dry conditions. It produces a blue, lavender, or purple flower, and it is drought tolerant, meaning that it doesn't need much water. It attracts butterflies, bees, and hummingbirds. And on the bottom right is the flower that we will be using in Minecraft. Our third plant is called the desert spoon. It originated in Chihuahua as well, and it is used as a common plant for decoration of houses everywhere across the El Paso and Chihuahuan region. It stores water in its thick leaves and stems, and those same leaves help protect the plant from animals that are trying to eat the plant. It thrives in rocky conditions, but can also be placed in sandy conditions as well. The Engelmann's prickly pear is a cactus that thrives in dry and sunny places, and where there's lots of sand and rocky slopes. This is great for El Paso mountains and or Chihuahuan mountains or regions. It's edible for people once you remove the spines, and spines, otherwise known as the prickles, cover that plant. In the springtime, yellow flowers adorn the cactus as well. The little leaf ash tree is a medium-sized tree with rounded tops. In the fall, the leaves do turn yellow, but year-round it is usually green. It does need a source of water, so usually around the plant there will be a little pond or just a hose is fine. It enjoys the dry, hot weather though, and it is adaptable to different soils like mulch, sand, rock, or just subsoil. The trailing germander is our next plant, and it is a small green bush that is very fuzzy. It can survive in dry conditions, but it does attract bees, but it attracts butterflies. It's good for covering bare patches of ground in gardens, and it's a very protective plant, and it can give shade to many different types of animals. The white thorn acedia is another plant that we see around El Paso. It is a shrub or small tree with small leaves and very sharp white thorns. These white thorns are usually mistaken as the flowers that are on the plant, since the flowers can be white or yellow. This plant doesn't need much water usually just lots of sun, and it thrives in rocky and sandy areas. Our next plant is called the violet silverleaf. The violet silverleaf is a soft, fuzzy shrub that has a silver grayish color to it. This silverish gray color is fuzzy so that it protects itself from predators or animals from touching it, since it does have a rough texture to it. There are small purple flowers on the end, which usually bloom during spring or summertime, but it does prefer rocky and sandy soil. Our last plant is called fluff grass. This is small, clummy grass, and the seed head looks like little puffs of cotton. The seeds are spread through the wind, and the cotton helps it stick to the ground to reproduce. It grows in dry, sandy, or rocky areas, and this plant does help hold soil in place and prevent erosion. So here in the beginning of our area, we have some, if I can go back. We have some trailing germander right in the front. And if we go here, we have a little lake or pond with also our Chihuahuan sage right here. We also have two little leaf ash trees, which are both surrounded by water. And we also have our Cape honeysuckle here throughout the trailing germander. We also have some fluff grass and one of our prickly pears, the Engelmann prickly pears. Oh, there's a bunny. We used a lot of different types of grass and sand throughout our layout. Here we have our trailing germander again, which is the smaller bits right here. But we also have our desert spoon, which is the taller grass. These are what is used as decoration in houses. We have several more of the prickly pears and the, what were they called? The fluff grass and our white thorn acedias as well. And then here we have our violet silverleaf spread throughout the garden. We also use some red sand since it is commonly found that they can use this in different types of soil. And we have a little waterfall / water fountain. Here we have another one of the ash trees. And a toad. Finally, in the back here, we have our composting piles. These piles can be used if we put specific types of crops, such as wheat, beetroot, potato peels, and half-eaten carrots, and even fully eaten apples. We can use them to create a compost pile. And with all these different types of compost, we are able to get soil for get either soil or just food bone meal for our plants so that they can grow, like so. On the topic of composting, here are the do's and don'ts for everyday gardening. First, while composting, do use greens and browns. Greens are like fruits and vegetable scraps. As seen in the poster, we can use half-eaten carrots, banana peels, egg shells, and even fully eaten apples. And browns are like the dry leaves, shredded newspaper, and cardboard. The second doing for composting is to chop things up. Smaller pieces break down faster. Think of it like cutting food into bite-sized pieces so that it makes it easier to eat. Our third do's of composting is to add water. Your composting pile should be moist, like a wrung out sponge, but not soaking wet, just very damp. Our fourth one is to turn your compost. Turning your compost means that every few days or so, you should use a shovel or a gardening fork to mix it around. This will help let the air get in, which helps the good bugs and the microbes do their work in creating a better compost. The fifth do is to be patient. Composting takes time, and it can take a few weeks to a few months depending on the conditions of the weather and the type of food that you're putting in and the conditions. The don'ts of composting are: don't add meat, fish, or dairy. These things can attract pests and make your compost smell really, really bad. Also, don't add oily or greasy foods. This can also attract pests and slow down the composting process. Just like the doctor tells us not to eat greasy food or junk food because it can slow us down, it also works the same for compost. Don't add pet waste. This can contain harmful bacteria from what foods they're eating, to what they're drinking, to anything that they pick up from outside, to any diseases that the pet can be holding. Also, don't add treated wood. Wood that has been treated with chemicals can release those chemicals then into your compost, which would later affect the compost and help potentially destroy your plant that you're composting. And finally, don't add large branches. It will take a long time for those to break down, which will then make your composting take even longer than it should be, which if it's a few weeks to a few months, it could be half a year. So adding large branches or any of the different types of pet waste, greasy foods, it can slow it down. So it's better to use the right things and the do's so that you have a successful compost to use for everyday gardening.